Yeah, I better do the intro then. So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the first ever me and Banana Warrior Princess live debate. Really exciting. Really happy to have Davey on board. Do you want to say hi, Davey?
Hi.
Hi. Davey's been kind enough to hop on the chat. So first rule of Debate Club, be nice to Davey, everyone. Right? I don't want to see any people being knobs in the chat, otherwise we'll kick you out.
I'm likely never going to see the chat, so they can.
Okay. Carry on being knobs to Davey. He can't see it.
You can be as mean as you want. I can.
Yeah. So yeah, if you just tuned in, not really sure what's going on. Basically, we're doing a vegan versus ex-vegan live debate. We're going to be discussing the ethics of veganism, and then talking about political veganism and I guess effective activism. Would you call it that, Davey? And your kind of views?
Yeah, and I've got quite a lot to say on that as well. That I probably will agree with Davey on some points of it, actually. So
yeah, I'd imagine we both will. So yeah, so I guess to kind of start off the debate, then we'll just kind of clarify kind of positions, so we kind of get an understanding of where everyone's at. So obviously, you know, from an ethical point of view with veganism, my position is it's unnecessary. We have alternatives available, and I think that it's morally wrong to do in 2017. I guess that's the quickest way of doing it. Emma, do you want to go next?
My position is, well, basically I come at it from a sort of like a logical perspective. So basically if I can't justify the same ill treatment to myself, I can't really justify it on another sentient life, essentially. I can't justify the devaluation. So it's not really sort of an emotional position. It's more of a sort of a logical one, really. I can't justify it. So therefore, that's why I'm vegan. Simple as that.
Cool. And Davey?
I mean, mine's quite simple. I was vegan for a long time, and the sort of psychological barriers which led me to being vegan just they're not really there anymore. I mean, like there are certainly things that led to that, but ultimately I don't consider it a problem anymore.
Okay, well maybe we'll start with that then. Maybe we can start with, you know, what was it that made you go vegan initially?
Obviously when we were kids, we were into punk rock, and there was especially like loads of sort of straight edge and vegan punk rock out there. I mean, I had my very first foray into animal rights activism when I was I think I was maybe 9 years old, and I found out what vivisection was, and I went home and started writing letters to every company I could think of. It kind of led from there. Like I was like having conversations with my mom when I was like 9 and 10, and saying like, oh, you know, this is bad, and they shouldn't test on animals, but ultimately I kind of want to keep eating them. And then as time went on and I kind of progressed through my teenage years, I just started reading more and more about veganism. Ultimately went vegan, I think about 14, something like that.
Okay.
It was basically just through various bits of propaganda that were put out there by a range of different organizations. So PETA were obviously one of them. Obviously, being into punk rock, we had quite a lot of contact with, well, not contact, but we received quite a lot of propaganda from groups like the ALF. Ultimately, all that kind of got to me in the end, and I just decided that I didn't want to take part in that system anymore.
Okay, so what was it then? I guess, you know, led you to not be vegan. I guess is the important thing we kind of need to know.
I mean, it was kind of the same line of thinking, really, is that I didn't want to be a sort of a part of this, what I saw as a system of abuse at the time. And so when I was sort of early 20s, I started adopting veganism, and I, instead of eating exclusively vegan food, I would eat non-vegan food, but only if I'd stolen it, basically.
Okay.
Because I mean, to me, it seemed almost more like ultimately, if I'm going into Tesco's and I'm buying like, I'm buying myself a set of like Linda McCartney sausages, like the £2 I've paid for those, like Tesco don't discriminate where they put that money. Like that goes into a big pot. And so to me, it seemed way more ethical to actually steal whatever food I liked and consume that than it did to, to go in there and spend some money on the vegan thing and expect that would somehow lead to, a more, them sort of, expect that them to sort of lead that to the reduction of the non-vegan market with regards to, expect that to lead to a reduction of the non-vegan market rather than just an expansion of the vegan one. Ultimately, I just kind of stopped seeing that we were making a difference, and after a while, I stopped, it stopped affecting me emotionally anymore. Like I could watch the same propaganda, could watch new propaganda, and factory farming still, it still put me off massively, and I actively avoided that. But the sort of emotional reaction that was there when I was young just wasn't there anymore when I was an adult.
Right. Okay. And do you still practice, say, freeganism, or you just kind of go with whatever now?
I don't anymore. No, I've got kids. I can't just shoplift all my food anymore.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, like, I still consider animal welfare a lot when I buy food. Like, I mean, I do buy like, I do apologize because I appreciate this is the most irritating thing to hear when you're a vegan, but like I do buy exclusively free range, but like properly free range food, not just like been open the cage door for an hour a day free range. I don't really eat all that much meat, I don't think, although I do probably eat it every day, but the portions I eat are quite small. I don't really use dairy, but that's just as much health as it is ethics. And then eggs and things like that, I buy, again, like properly free range stuff, not just like, again, let them out of the cage for an hour a day.
Okay. I mean, do you think we need animal products in our diets? Is it an essential thing to have?
Well, I mean, it's certainly expedient. I don't think that. I mean, I don't think that it's 100% necessary. I mean, obviously, vegans are living proof that people can get by without animal produce. But I mean, we can get by without an enormous range of things, and it doesn't mean we're going to stop doing them.
Yeah, I mean, Emma, obviously you've got some questions you wanted to ask. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, my question would be, do you think it's morally justifiable to kill animals for food?
Well, I think you've kind of got to look at where those morals come from.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I would have to reduce morals to a sort of intellectualization. I can't say that word. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Intellectualization. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
Of an emotional reaction, and
is it an emotional reaction?
I think so. Yeah.
Could it be a logical position? Do you think?
Well, obviously, you would disagree with me on that. You describe your veganism as inherently logical.
Yeah.
I would argue that the decision that you couldn't justify inflicting that on yourself or a brother or a sister, parent, child, whatever. I mean, for me, that is emotional. That's not a logical sort of reaction. I mean, it's not it's certainly got no sort of mathematical quality or scientific quality to it. That is an emotional reaction.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, go on.
No, carry on.
In terms of like logical consistency, though, if you wouldn't want to inflict suffering onto another human being, how can you inflict it onto an animal and be consistent with with your value system? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't see and I don't see sort of a dichotomy between those two emotional reactions. I mean, I certainly have no desire to kill and eat a human. I've never been in a situation where that might be necessary, so I can't say that I definitely wouldn't. But you know, I like to think that I would hold out for as long as I possibly could.
I mean, Davey, would you say that to give something lower moral value, to moral devalue something, you have to justify it? So we can't just assert that something is lower in moral value than us. We have to explain why that is.
I mean, again, I used to see veganism as kind of like an expression, as like the final expression of a lot of different struggles against different power structures, whether that was class or patriarchy or white supremacy or whatever. You know, I saw veganism as this is what people just tend to do to things that they consider lower themselves. You know, they'll enslave them. They will. The logical conclusion of that is to, you know, to kill and consume them as we do to animals. But again, I mean, it does just sort of disregard a lot of practice which has gone on for God knows how many thousands of years. And
would you say just because we've done something for a long time that makes it morally justifiable though?
Well, I mean, you'd have to point me to something that we've done for that long.
I mean, we kept slaves for quite a while.
Well, I think we're going on a bit of a tangent here, though. If we go back to the question of, you know, is it morally justifiable to devalue a life, and if so, why?
Well,
I think we need to go over that first before we.
Yeah, well, okay. For me, life certainly does have different values. I mean, I don't think that's a particularly controversial position to take. Certainly animals that have been, I mean, like I say, I can't get on board with factory farming. I never will.
Yeah.
But for animals that have been raised, I mean, none of these animals have got any chance of looking after themselves, and we have bred them that way. There's no reversing that now.
If I give you an example, Davey, though, of you know, like an example of how somebody could be devalued for sort of like an arbitrary reason. For instance, you know, like if I was to say to you, your life is meaningless because you've got yellow teeth and I've got white teeth, or something like that, would you agree that's sort of like an arbitrary reason for devaluing that person's life?
Well, I mean, I don't think I disagree with your position on taking it. I mean, we're not going to be friends if you take that position, but
well, yeah, it's just like it's like a silly reason, isn't it, to devalue?
Your values, you can have it. It doesn't bother me. Like,
so do you think that you know, if you take the same position and apply it to an animal, like they're a pig, therefore they don't deserve the right to life? Do you think that's, you know, because I don't know, whatever the case may be, like taste, pleasure, or for health reasons, whatever the case may be, do you think that's
certainly the way that I consume meat, they do have a decent life beforehand, and that's not to say that, you know, like,
I'm not arguing that. I'm sure they do. You know, you go for sort of like high welfare options and stuff like that. But do you think there's the actual act of the slaughter, if you wouldn't want that inflicted upon yourself as a human being, then what justification is there for devaluing their life? Is there sort of like a trait or a difference between us and the pig or the cow and the chicken or whatever animal you want to eat? Is there any difference between us that would you know, make it acceptable to kill one and not the other? And if so, do you know what that might be?
There is certainly a difference of conscious, though, isn't there? I mean, like,
consciousness.
There's no way to. I mean, animals have. They don't have. They certainly have learning and they have instinct, but they don't have it the way we do. I mean, the only animal which I would kind of like, some animals which, for example, I can't bring myself to eat. Like, I can't bring myself to eat calamari because Jesus Christ, octopuses are clever.
What's that? What's the animals?
Calamari. It's like,
calamari.
It's like squid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, I mean, they're like, octopuses are clever. They are like arguably just as clever as humans. They really are clever.
What about pigs?
Yeah, but they're not as clever as pigs.
I mean, pigs have been shown to be as intelligent as a 3-year-old child, which is more intelligent than dogs.
Yeah, but then there's plenty of people that would eat dogs.
Yeah.
There is, very obviously.
I mean,
Go on, Chris. I was completely forgotten what I was going to say then. going back to the difference thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're saying about obviously level of consciousness there.
Yeah, that was it.
Consciousness. Yeah, I mean, would you say that if, say, a human had the same level of consciousness as a cow or a pig, that it would then justify us killing and eating the human because they then have the same level of consciousness?
Well, again, it's back to the level of emotional attachment, isn't it? No, of course not, because I have a much stronger emotional attachment to a human with low intelligence than I do to a cow.
But does emotional attachment, does that alone devalue? I mean, obviously, it can make you value certain lives more, for example, members of your family or something, but it shouldn't take away from the basic right of something's life, the right to live of another being. I can't see how it would bring up the value or bring up the moral value personally, but I can't see how it would devalue.
Okay, but then that's the sort of that's the position that you will take, having had that reaction. Is that you for you emotionally you can equate or you will equate all life together. I won't.
I wouldn't say it's emotional. It's more, obviously the saying, do unto others as you would.
Put a value system behind it, and you can try and sort of rationalize your decision, which is perfectly fine to do. But ultimately, it is going to come down to that, whether I personally, have that reaction to the idea of a animal life being taken, or I don't. And I don't, and you do. I mean, I don't think there's really much. There's not a whole lot of education. I mean, especially for me, having seen enormous amounts of the propaganda, having been affected by enormous amounts of the propaganda in the past. I mean, there's no level of education that can be provided there that can produce that reaction in me, and that's the way for an enormous amount of people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to provoke an emotional.
Yeah, it doesn't for me. Like I'm not emotionally attached to animals.
I think it's more just a basic moral consistency of where if we see two beings that are both sentient, both feeling feel pain, feel emotion themselves, then it's justifying the difference of treatment between those two, and to say, well, why can I treat one differently to how I would want to be treated myself? And that's not so much emotional, that's more kind of logical and moral consistency. And that's kind of what we're kind of asking, is what is the justification to treat something which doesn't really have a distinct difference between humans?
It does,
like in a way that we would reject.
It does. It has a very distinct difference.
What is that difference then?
Well, again, it's consciousness. Of course, it's consciousness.
So
just communicate. I mean, going back to the emotional thing, it's probably some level of communication.
So that was the fact that we can speak. Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, I mean, that's probably one of the things that I should think would put up a block to that reaction. And I mean, I am going to insist that for me, that it is an emotional reaction that produces these things, regardless of whether it can be logically or whatever. But for a lot of people, I imagine it would be that they for example, they can't understand or can't sort of conceive of that animal suffering, and so therefore it will be dehumanized. Of course, it's dehumanized because it's not human, but it will be devalued. It's not for me. That's not the way I justify it. For me, I justify it just because the reaction's not there. I've seen all the propaganda, I've seen all that, and I do place a lower value on it. And it's certainly not really going to be convincing me.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
no, it's not so much. It's not so much convincing you. It's just trying to understand the logic and the mindset behind it, I guess. Because obviously you're saying about maybe kind of speaking and consciousness. I mean, again, if we brought those traits to a human, and we brought the level of consciousness of a human down to a less conscious level, to maybe a level where it can't talk,
so someone of severe learning difficulties, for instance.
Yeah, who's got the same consciousness and abilities as an animal.
Probably less than a pig, actually, like a lot less than.
Yeah, I mean, would that then morally justify killing anything with a human?
Hugely, this is the exact argument that so strongly put me off veganism, is that massive lack of any level of intersectional thinking. To compare someone with learning difficulties to a pig.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's not comparing. It's just showing.
Yeah,
it's a logical comparison.
I've heard this so many times before. That this does seem to be the argument that veganism falls back on. Is
it not? Why is it not a good argument? I mean, how is it? Is it invalid? Are you saying it's an invalid argument?
I mean, you can't dehumanize people with learning difficulties. That's just not okay.
Oh, no, we're not looking.
No, we're not. No,
that's not the point of the.
Okay, so you might feel like you're using it to humanize the animal rather than dehumanize the person, but it is always going to come across like you're dehumanizing the person.
I mean, if it comes across like that, that's fair enough. But I mean, I think what it is it's more showing that there is no trait present in animals that if we had that trait that we would reject our right to life. So, and therefore by moral consistency, it doesn't make any sense that we would continue to kill them when we would never want it done to ourselves. And that's what it is. It's not comparing. It's not saying that animals are the same as a disabled person. It's not saying that at all. It's more trying to even out the scale, I guess, and try and be like, well, if they were on the same level, would that be okay to do it to one but not the other, when they've got the same differences, if that makes sense? Does that make sense, or am I kind of rambling a little bit?
Well, I mean, I kind of get the argument you're trying to make.
Yeah.
It is nonetheless. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but this I think was like 1997, 1998, something like this. And I know a vast majority of vegans have got a huge issue with PETA anyway. But I mean, this led, like, that, using that very argument led to such public outcry that their vice president got sacked.
What was the actual argument they were using there? Do you remember?
I think exactly what paraphrasing what he said was something that, like, he felt that animals should have the same rights as a child, or
that's absurd.
A child with learning difficulties, or a human without learning difficulties, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that is around about what he said.
I mean, just to clarify my position on that, I don't think that humans and animals should have the same rights. I mean, there's no point in giving a cow the right to vote or the right to drive a car or anything like that. We are different. As a species, humans are a superior species, in many ways, whether it be in a higher intellect, whether it be maybe a higher level of sentience or consciousness or whatever. But I think the basic right to life is something that is still something that everything should have, unless we can justify taking that away from them, I guess. I mean, and I don't agree with all PETA's comparisons as well. Just so you know, I don't. There's some things, maybe more from a effective activism point of view than anything else.
Gotta give them some credit. They sent me stickers when I was like 15.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying everything they do bad. I mean, I think everyone has to do some good things. They do some questionable things. We all kind of know that.
But I mean, you kind of you acknowledge yourself there that, like, we are superior, and I'm never going to fall back on arguments like, oh, it's natural, or like, oh, food chain or whatever. But we are omnivorous.
Well, are we? Can you 100% prove that?
Well, yeah. We massively struggle to break down plant material that most other herbivores can comfortably eat.
For instance,
grass, leaves. I mean, we have to. Even a good good portion of berries, things which like the things like the vegetable matter and fruit matter that we eat actually has to be prepared in quite a specific way. It has to be farmed in quite a specific way. And a lot of the arguments I usually kind of get back from vegans would be that, you know, oh, you humans aren't omnivores because we can't, for example, just pick up and eat a chicken without cooking it. But reasonably, there's a good portion of like a vegetation out there that would stone dead kill us quicker than eating a chicken would kill us.
We don't need to eat those things though, do we? Because we've got like fruits and vegetables, grains and pulses and pizza and chips and ice cream, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, maybe you're not coming at this from a strictly sort of organic vegan standpoint. But I mean, if you're using the example of sort of pizza and chips and things like that, I mean, these things have to be prepared. You know, it takes way longer to make a pizza from scratch than it does to make a burger from scratch. Like this.
Yeah, but that's not an argument to, you know, kill and eat animals, is it?
It's the argument that I usually encounter when
it's more of a convenience argument, isn't
it? Sorry, Davey. Going back to the omnivore thing, though, is there like is it like there's going to be some kind of enzyme present in our stomachs that we're able to digest and eat meat, or is it just like it's just like where do you get that from?
We've not got the enzymes present that are needed to consume things that the vast majority of natural herbivores would eat.
I mean, one thing I always fall back on is before we had weapons and tools, how were we consuming meat in general? Because we don't have the ability to run and take down a cow because they're massive. I mean, you know, and it seems more that we are built as, you know, like our closest relatives, like, you know, bonobos, chimps, things like that, which have a very high plant intake diet. If they do eat meat, it's normally from a scavenging point of view, but they're definitely it's not a kind of biological requirement of theirs.
When did we not have weapons? I mean, like every civilization, every human civilization we've ever found.
Well, if you think, way before we invented, you know, fire, or we thought, oh, we're going to use this as a knife. We're just going to be like everything else. We'll just be like the monkeys are now. The monkeys are only chimps have only just started to develop tools.
Historically, that isn't relevant at all, because there's never been a human civilization that didn't have some semblance of technology, some semblance of
humans are way more intelligent. We've got the brain capacity to think of all these things, but
this is assuming that we were put on the earth as a fully intelligent being who could use tools.
Some of the earliest things we've ever discovered have been weaponry, and if you can look at the oldest cave paintings that you can find, the Sumpchet Gorge, if you ever fancy the trip there, depict humans hunting.
Oh yeah, I mean, these things would have been done when we're at a certain level of intelligence to be able to do paintings and things. But before that, if we're going to, I mean, I don't want to have a big discussion about evolutionary theory because we're here forever. But I mean, if that is the case and we evolved from lesser beings, then there would have been quite a large period of time where we wouldn't have been doing these things because we wouldn't have the intelligence to, and we would have developed that over years. It seems a bit strange.
It's just that we didn't eat. You know, if you want to have a look at it in regards, I mean, if you can go to Paynton Zoo and have a look at some gorillas. I mean, you know, they eat bugs. They do eat small animals if they can get hold of them. But
yeah,
you know,
I mean, I don't think we're disputing that we can't digest the, you know, bugs or cooked meat or whatever. Well, but does that necessarily
Someone sort of asked me to question it, so I kind of have.
Do you necessarily think that we should, though, just because you can do something that we should? Like, might means right?
Well, but it's obviously something that, I mean, that we are that we have done for a very long time. We are obviously omnivorous creatures.
But you're not going to fall back on appeal to tradition, are you? Because
I'm not saying it based on tradition. I'm saying
you can't just use that argument alone.
Tradition is something that goes back several generations. I mean, this is, apart from maybe reproduction, something that we have done since day dot.
But
like, I mean, and there is no parallel to that in terms of like, this isn't like every Christmas we have apple pie, like that's a tradition.
Yeah,
like
but I guess regardless how long we've done it, in 2017, if we have alternatives available, and we don't need to do it anymore, and it obviously causes suffering and harm to other sentient beings, don't you think? Don't you think it'd be something we should avoid if we have the opportunity to? Like, should we just carry on just because we've done it for a long time, or should we make a change to not do that?
Well, I'm more than happy for people to work towards making farming, you know, more, for lack of a better word, ethical. Like, animal welfare standards should absolutely be respected. I've got no sympathy for people with, you know, an electric stun gun, which barely ever works. You know, giving something a shot through the head and then sticking it up on a chainsaw conveyor belt. Like, that will never have my sympathy. That animal is suffering, and it's suffered since the day it was born. But again,
do you not think killing on its own is suffering?
Yeah, what's the definition of suffering?
I mean, it would be enormously difficult for me to define.
How is death not suffering? That's what I put it that way.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
I mean, I'm not. Again, the suffering should be kept to an absolute minimum.
So no death. That'd be no suffering then. That'd be 100% not suffering.
The highest welfare standards the animal does suffer very little in death, and it's not to say that it isn't going to suffer at all, but then all animals do kind of suffer a little bit when certainly of any species, we're inflicting the least suffering during death.
But I mean, I guess if it's completely avoidable, and we obviously, because we do have other foods available, why are we continuing to do it? Why are we just not letting them get on with it? I mean, because we obviously have no biological need for animal products in our diet, so we're not eating it for survival anymore. It's purely for taste pleasure, if we're honest. So it seems a bit kind of strange that we would continue to do something that harms when we've got the option not to.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see that it causes the harm that you do. I really don't. But
would you not define killing in itself as harm? Like if you know?
Yeah, if you
imagine it, you don't want to be killed yourself.
Just to add on to that, exactly, Chris. If you define death as harm to yourself, if it happened to you, then how is it any different, you know, for an animal?
Well, I'm not saying that I have you know, any. This isn't like a sort of I completely accept the death of myself at any stage, but we kind of go around in the same circle as that.
You wouldn't accept it if somebody, say, like if an alien overlord came. I know that this is a cliche and this is an overused example, but if an alien overlord came down tomorrow and decided to use Earth's resources and just decided humans are tasty, we're gonna breed them and eat them, you wouldn't accept your death to feed the alien overlord, would you?
Probably not. No.
So it's the same. Like, it works, doesn't it? That logic works.
I'm not really sure. But when I mean, it's not a good example, because then you're talking about two intelligent species kind of in a position of conflict. You're not talking about a species which has certainly selectively bred these animals to a point where they could not look after themselves anymore.
So that means it's justifiable because they can't look after themselves.
Well, I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you think would happen to chickens?
I mean, should we maybe stop breeding them, and then
we could? But then I think you're going to have a look at this in terms of probably biodiversity, in that every single thing that everything. I mean, like, how many animals in the world are we going to be short at that point? I
mean, I guess a question I'd ask is, obviously you said, you know, the animals.
We're both talking about death.
Oh, wait.
Your position leads to just as many animals dying as mine.
In what way does our position cause as many deaths?
Before we get on to that, though, can we just, like, just confirm that, is it acceptable to kill and eat an animal? Is it? I mean, is it acceptable? Is it acceptable to kill an animal if they suffer? Is it? Put it this way: if you didn't kill it for food, would it be acceptable just to stab an animal to death?
No, I mean, I really don't think you should kill things just for fun, but I think that's for different reasons. I think that.
Yeah, but they're not going to know any different, are they? I suppose.
They're not going to know any different, but I am looking at this from like a kind of like psychological viewpoint more than the sort of animal rights viewpoint. I am always going to worry about someone who enjoys killing stuff, but that is, like I say, that is from a psychological viewpoint, not an animal rights one.
That's fair. I forgot what I was going to say.
Biodiversity.
Oh yeah, what I was going to say, was you were saying about all the animals that we've currently got on the planet are, they would struggle to live wild because they have been obviously bred for farming. So if they were basically man-made animals, which is what they are, is there really any ethical problem if we did just let them die out? Really, I mean, would that not be better that they're not suffering? I mean, there will still be types of cow in the world, there'll still be types of sheep in the world, but this wouldn't be the domestic kind, or there'd be some in sanctuary. So would that necessarily be a bad thing? Is it better to have, very, very few rather than a lot that are suffering?
But I mean, if both of our viewpoints lead to the animal dying, the only thing that's different is the way in which it's the way in which it meets that death.
I'd be more looking at them not being bred, and then they won't exist.
Because sorry, go on. I just want to ask because otherwise I'll just forget. Hang on, I completely forgot what you were talking about there. What were you saying?
the domestic cows and breeding or not breeding.
Oh yeah, that was it. If is it better to for someone not to exist in the first place, or for them to exist and then have their life taken prematurely? Because if they don't exist, then they have no consciousness to experience pain. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't think you'd ever get an answer to that question. I
Why
think
not?
Well, better for something to live and then die, or never live at all. I mean, that's like. It's just straight numbers thinking, isn't it? Like, I mean, you're not going to get it. I think you're looking at how badly depressed the person who answers that question is.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, that is a really nihilist way of thinking, isn't it? I mean, like, whether it's better to live and die.
Well, it's not. I mean, it is a valid question, though, isn't it? I mean, if you
don't know that it is.
Is it not?
Because,
why not?
I mean, it's not an answerable question. I mean, there's no. I mean, obviously for you, it's better to not have lived. But I really don't think that there's any. You could ever reach a definitive answer as to whether it is better to have lived.
Okay, put it into context of humans then. If you knew that your child was going to be born and raised to be slaughtered at the age of 3, would you prefer that they wouldn't be born at all?
I mean, it's not a parallel because. Well, it's not a parallel. It's just not, because I have that forethought.
But why? Why is it a parallel?
Well, because I have the forethought. I have the ability to make a decision on that. Like, I mean, it's.
So we can make decisions on whether we choose to eat animals or not, and whether to breed them into existence. So how is it not a parallel? See what I'm saying? It's like, yeah.
I don't think it's a power. I mean, no, you're right. I probably wouldn't. I probably would actively avoid pregnancies if that said, it's not me that's going to carry the child, so it's not really my decision in the first place. But yeah, I mean, I mean, I would probably strongly discourage a partner of mine from getting pregnant if we knew the child was going to be slaughtered. But at the same time, there have been human civilizations throughout history who, knowing the subjugation that they faced, did still continue to have children. So you are whilst I can say in this context, knowing that that's never a possibility, that
Yeah, but I mean, do you base all of your opinions on that of other people, or do you go by what you feel?
Well, I mean, again, if you don't base all of your opinions on different inputs from other people and other sources, then I mean, you've got no argument at all. All you've got is, I mean, yeah, you've got no argument if you're not taking other people's opinions into account.
Well, hang on, why? Because like if you think it's wrong to do something, like if you've got a sort of like a value system,
it's just bloody minded. I mean, if you're not willing to listen to another person's point of view and take it on board and at least weigh up, I mean, you've got something to learn from everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to make this really broadly philosophical, but I mean, like, the seemingly least intelligent person you've ever met, you've got something to learn from. Like, I mean, to flatly deny that and I mean, this is where it comes back to an emotional reaction for me as well. Like, if you're flatly refusing anybody else's point of view, or willing to stand from anyone, you are just acting on emotional reaction.
So just to clarify then, you would rather your child be born into existence to be slaughtered than for them to not to exist at all?
I'm not in that situation, so I can't make a call on it. But
I know, but I know, but it is a hypothetical situation, and it is a valid hypothetical to you.
But what I can say is that human civilizations throughout history, knowing that their children were going to be born into subjugation, did still have children. I mean,
yeah, but is that like an appeal to popularity, Chris? I don't know.
I mean, not particularly. It's just something kind of like, you know, in the same way they can make a choice with a human, we can make a choice with an animal. So I don't really see what the kind of difference is. If we wouldn't, I mean, people can make a decision to do that if it's their own child and they want to make a decision to bring a child, knowing that there could be hardship or pain within that child's life, then that they're making that decision. But I mean, you know, with the animals, we know exactly what's going to happen to them. It's not as if like it's like a 50-50 chance they might have a good life.
Yeah,
it's like they are going to die, and it's weighing up the, you know, do we actually need to bring them into this world? Because is there actually a valid reason to, which I think is the main kind of point of the argument. Is there a reason that we're doing this? The reason that we're breeding these animals when it's a requirement.
Is that a question to me? Sorry, I'm not.
Oh, I guess it's more of a statement than a question.
Sorry.
I should have put a question mark on the end for you. One thing I did want to say, that you said a minute ago about how our position harms as much as your position.
Yeah.
Would you care to explain?
Sorry,
yeah. Would you mind explaining kind of how and why that is?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's gonna, if you want to, well, I mean, I kind of think that we've kind of already covered it, is that your situation needs to, none of these animals, if you want to stop breeding them, which is absolutely fine for you to take that position, we do just end up in that argument, don't we, of whether it's better to have lived and died or not lived.
But I wouldn't say, I mean,
I don't know really what more ground we could cover on that particular issue.
Because I would
breed these animals out of existence. I do think that, I mean, I don't know, I'm not in any way an expert on biodiversity, but I would think that would have ecological consequences, certainly.
Potentially in a good way, though, because I mean, if you think that 95% of Amazon deforestation is due to cattle and cattle feed, then surely the not having cattle on that land and letting the Amazon, you know, potentially regrow could be quite a good thing.
A huge amount of the Amazon has also gone to develop soy fields. Like, let's not forget that.
But only about 6% of soy is actually fed to humans. The rest, majority of soy is actually for either biofuels or for cattle feed. So we'd still be eliminating a large majority of the soy.
The Amazon is just about gone now. I mean, there's very little that we can do about that. I mean,
but Davey, would you agree that it takes a lot more soy and grain to sustain an animal's life to feed to us, and it would just to directly eat the crops? Like, you know, orders of magnitude more crops to feed livestock animals.
I wouldn't. No, it comes down to biomass, doesn't it? I don't know whether.
Well, I mean, because if you're gonna raise like a cow to feed you, then it's throughout its lifetime it's gonna eat a shitload of food, right? But if you just went directly to the source and cut out the middle man, the cow,
The middle
then
cow.
the middle cow, yeah, then obviously it's gonna that's way less food. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you have to sustain that cow's life throughout its lifetime before it dies.
We're going to have to consume the same level of calories, though, aren't we? So actually, I mean, just give me a second. I'll maths it.
Well, if you think,
sorry, go on.
If you think about it in this sense, that there's 60 billion land animals present that are eating around 50% of all the world's crops. So, and there's, the amount of food they're eating is not, is more than the whole of humans on the planet need. So, I think that maths just kind of does it alone. We're feeding more to them than we actually need. If we didn't have the cows and we just ate the crops, we'd actually have more than we need.
What do you think would happen to it, though?
In what sense?
What do you think would happen to those crops?
Would happen to the crops? Well,
do you think there'd suddenly be some like really egalitarian future where we'd reached where suddenly world hunger was eliminated? And
no. I mean, I think it's certainly not an end fix. It's not just a perfect fix where we eliminate them and suddenly all these crops are available to us. There's a hell of a lot of other factors, but what it does do is it gives us the opportunity to progress into that kind of thing where we have more land available to grow potentially other crops. So I don't think we could just live off of all soy.
Yeah, and it's much more sustainable, right?
Yeah, and it's sustainable long term, but because you think about the growing human population. I mean, what we got 100 and is it 100 and no, how many humans have we got on the planet again? I can't remember now.
Is it 7 billion?
7 billion at the moment. Yeah,
yes, 7.2 billion.
Yeah, so we got obviously that amount, and that is growing rapidly. And the move with livestock from intensive situations into pasture is completely not possible, because just literally due to the amount of land we would have to give these creatures. So the only option is to then intensify the farming. So what were we going to say, Davey?
I mean, it seems like this is a figure that you'd probably have. You said it was 60 billion animals, though.
There's 60 billion. There's 60 billion land animals, which we kill per year for food, and marine animals it could be as high as 2.7 trillion.
Okay, so I mean, if you, it's just in regard like, I'm kind of again thinking about it in sort of mathematical terms. That's less than 10 animals each a year.
It's so actually 0. I could actually tell you. I actually watched a talk on this. How much was it? You eat something like each person eats about. I think it's 20. This could be slightly wrong, but it's around this. I think it's about 25 fish, 15 chickens, 0.8 of a pig, and half a cow a year, each person.
Right, cool. I'm not sure that adds up, because I mean, like I say, if you've got 60 billion land animals and there's 7.2 billion people, I mean, if you take fish out of the equation just for a second, like that's less than 10 animals a year. So you actually probably kind of winning already. Like there's certainly people don't eat less than 10 animals a year. You're probably in a situation where actually the majority of the world is already vegetarian, at least.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to go for, and then obviously to vegan. But I mean, it's just the resources and everything that we need to maintain 60 billion land animals is absolutely huge. Like if we're talking about environment stuff, you probably already know. Like the UN report shows that animal agriculture is causing more greenhouse gases than all the world's transport combined. It's also the #1 cause of the ocean dead zones, deforestation, species extinction. It's a global environmental disaster.
I mean, in fact, I sort of give you, if those figures are correct.
I can provide sources.
The one argument that I could see convincing me to turn vegan is that from just purely an ecological point of view, it does seem to be a bit more sustainable. So there you go. You can have that one victory if you like.
Thanks. It is like it, I mean, it's an absolutely huge.
Oh, hello.
Are producing cow farts. Are you still there? Or am I just saying cow farts a lot?
Chris, you broke up a bit, but you're back now.
Oh, that's right. I was just saying cow farts, so this must have sounded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's basically cow farts that are producing all this methane into the world, and yeah, that's what's one of the leading causes of greenhouse gas emissions, which is crazy. And transport is responsible for 13%, and livestock is potentially up to 51% of.
It's 18%. Yeah.
What's that?
18%.
It's between 18 and 51.
18, yeah.
It's depending on which. There's two studies. There's the World Watch study.
I'll go with the more conservative one though, just because.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, between 18 to 51, depending on which study you read, because they take into I can't remember what it is now, breathing or something. I can't remember, but I can link people to studies if they want to see. But either way, it's more than transportation, which is crazy. And obviously, methane is it's more destructive than CO2 as well, which goes into the atmosphere. So yeah, it's pretty bad from an environmental point of view.
It's not why you do it though, is it?
What's that? Well, no, for me, it's ethical. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The reason I gave up being vegan is ethical, but obviously, from learning all of this, it does make me very concerned about environmental stuff, which is why I know my facts about it. Because in the end, I'm living on this planet. If I ever have children or anything, they're going to be continuing to live on this planet, and I want to make sure that it's in a decent condition. I don't yeah, and in the end, environment destruction is killing more animals, and even if it's just ethical reasons, that's a reason for me to want to protect the environment.
What other sort of green steps do you take?
What just in general?
Yeah,
kind of things. Well, at the moment, I'm looking to grow my own food, which is going to be a good thing. I'm really annoyed at the moment, but I don't have a car, so I don't drive. Walk everywhere pretty much. Then what other green things do I do? Try not to use too much water. Recycle where possible. Although my flat currently doesn't have recycle bins, which really annoys me. So if someone could sort that out, that would be really helpful, because it annoys me every time I put stuff in the bin.
Anyone from
I can't separate it, which is a really lame thing to be annoyed about, but I get annoyed about it all the time.
Okay. By recycling, good. So it does kind of make my earlier point though, doesn't it? Like that veganism for you is an emotional reaction. These things will support it and do justify that reaction, but in terms of saying that it's great for the environment, which you have demonstrated that it is. If it wasn't, if it was the other way around and vegetables were going to cause that much, like 18% worth of 18%, do you think that you would still be vegan?
I still would because I think I prioritize life more than the environment. I prioritize the value of an animal over the environment. Sorry, just to
I agree.
sentience over the environment.
Yeah, I don't think the environment isn't the main issue for me.
No, it's not my problem.
I've been brought up, to be an animal lover, and I spend a lot of time around animals, and I see that they are living, breathing beings. And I have, I can't see a reason to want to cause unnecessary harm to them. Some people say that it's an emotional thing, but then there's other animals that people don't like, but they're still not going to kill them just because. Like some people, some vegans hate spiders, but they're not going to kill a spider because they know that it shouldn't. It's not an emotional thing as such. It's living. I'm going to let it crack on with its day.
Yeah, just because it's an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience. It doesn't necessarily mean you should kill it. It's just just put it outside. Put it in a cupboard. Put it outside. It's not going to take you any longer to kill it than it will to put it outside. So
just to clarify, I'm not saying that there isn't an emotional attachment, because obviously I do care about animals, and obviously that I do have an emotional attachment with animals, and I won't deny that. But obviously, regardless of the animal, regardless even whether it was an animal and it was another living species that maybe I hated, I would still stand up for their right to life. Because everything has a right to life, unless there's a reason for it not to.
Yeah, because they've done nothing wrong, right? They're innocent. I mean, why do we need to kill them? when there's plenty of other options to eat.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the basics of it, really.
Okay. Yeah, I don't kill bugs. I put big bugs outside. I can't just kill it because it's there. In fact, to be honest, I don't really bother putting bugs outside, like unless it's like a wasp or something, which is actually going to try and sting me. And like I just leave it. Like it's just happy with it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to do. Protect the bugs. Yay.
But also, I just want to bring up actually that there's like this. There is a sliding scale of sentience, isn't there? So like I'm guilty. I've killed a few bugs probably accidentally in the last year or so since I've been vegan. Disgust.
Never been your friend again, Emma. Never. Disowned you.
Bugs dying on my windscreen when I drive in my car.
No more Friday night debates.
Yeah. Oh, just let everyone know, it is we have got to the hour, so I mean I'm happy to carry on because we did want to discuss the other thing as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which we can maybe.
Veganism.
It depends. Did we want to move on to that, or Emma, did you want to carry on?
Yeah, I'm happy to because I think we've covered.
Okay,
yeah, we've done the ethics.
So we've kind of covered the ethical side. So now we're going to kind of discuss, I guess, kind of effective activism and some of Davey's concerns, which are, I think, some of the things that kind of led you to not being vegan as well. So, Davey, if you want to maybe kind of talk us through a bit more.
Yeah. So obviously earlier on I kind of outlined a little bit of kind of what ended my veganism, but one of the things that did really kind of produce what you kind of might call a level of apathy in me in regards to the lives of animals is that towards the end, I mean, when I first went vegan, I was the only vegan I knew. And so I didn't have to interact with them, which was, to be honest, wonderful. And then I moved away and sort of got in contact kind of with a lot more activists, not just vegans, but people from all sorts of sort of paths and activism in general. And I think the thing that really started to get me with the majority of vegans is number one, the sort of sanctimony and the sort of general sort of fundamentalism that many of them do seem to embody. But I think the main thing for me was the lack of intersectionality in their thinking. Veganism was the only and highest struggle, and everything else came second. And they were happy to compare animals to, people with learning difficulties. They were happy to compare animals to sort of African chattel slavery. They were happy to compare animals to sort of the female enslavement. And towards the end, I couldn't cope with it anymore. Like I couldn't cope with it anymore because I've never had any problems with vegans. I'm not anti-vegan in any way, shape, or form. But for me, the big issue I have is that the majority of activist vegans I've met in my life have only had that one thing in mind and will disregard every single other person's struggle to put that forward. And so in the end, when I was kind of like, I almost kind of found myself in a position where I wanted to eat meat just to irritate these people, which I know isn't great. I mean, it's a really childish and really obnoxious attitude to take. But they were starting to make me so angry with these attitudes that I couldn't be a part of myself, be a part of them anymore. I mean, they as well just didn't seem to mind who they worked with to pursue the ultimate aim of global veganism. And so that ended up with things like the sort of National Socialist vegan cake shop in Camden. I mean, like Nazi vegan cake. I mean,
oh wow, really?
How anybody can justify working with that far right just to pursue, well, not just to pursue, but to pursue their agenda. I mean, that's a really, really destructive sort of path to go down. And there were quite a lot of situations where vegans and animal rights activists would side with extremely far right groups, individuals, etc., to push forward the sort of the case for veganism. And I mean, even at my most angry vegan stage, I've always hated, and I think rightly, always hated Nazis more than I hate people who eat meat. And for a lot of these people, it just didn't seem to be there. There used to seem to be no concept of struggling for any level of human suffering before struggling for that of animals, and it drove me mad.
So they were like, what's the word, misanthropist? Is that the word?
Misanthropy.
Yeah.
They hate humans.
Yeah.
Oh, so
okay, like that. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Misanthropy. Yeah, like where you hate humans basically, and you put animal lives before human lives and stuff like that. Yeah. Was it a bit like that?
I suppose. Yeah. I mean, again, it wasn't. It was kind of more than that, because I'm not gonna, like, if you love animals more than humans, that doesn't really bother me. But like, I think it was almost utilizing human struggles to push forward and trying to compare human struggles to that of like animals to sort of push forward their agenda that used to really wind me up. Like I say, comparing animals to kids with learning disabilities, comparing animals to African chattel slaves, to comparing animals to female slaves. Like that's what used to really wind me up.
And
we actually saw a talk at VegFest last year by a woman called Brenda Carter, who actually spoke a lot about exactly what you're talking about. And I mean, my kind of position on this is some of the comparisons. As someone who, obviously from what we just spoke about, I don't see a particularly, a big difference between us and animals. Anything that justifies any sort of difference in treatment, as we just discussed. So some of the comparisons, obviously not all of them, but I understand why people use them. Whether people should use them, though, is something I'm very strong with, because I think unless you're in that mind frame where you get that kind of, the similarities, and you're on that kind of level, which I guess I am, people will find it offensive and they will fight against it, and it is not effective activism in any way. And I totally agree.
Because it's triggering, right?
It's totally triggering, and you've got to realize that non-vegans are not on the same level. They haven't got that same connection between humans and animals that maybe we do, and they're not going to see it in the same way. It's just going to cause people to get really annoyed. And like, I'm in like so many vegan groups on Facebook. Like I must be in like 30 or something. So I see stuff come up on my wall constantly, and there are it's a constant thing. So Davey, I totally can understand why you would,
I get annoyed of it as well. I really do, when people do that. I just, when I'm sort of naming differences now between, like the name the trait thing, I just, like someone's got yellow teeth, another person's got white teeth, or because somebody's got, I don't know, a monobrow compared to somebody who hasn't. I just use arbitrary reasons like that now, because it can be really triggering to use language like, comparing animals to slaves and that kind of thing. I think.
Yeah, so. And I mean, again, it's like, I guess one of the biggest, most controversial ones is when people compare the animals to the Holocaust, which is a huge one. And obviously, that may be the one you were talking about, Davey, with PETA, because I know they got a lot of flack for doing a comparison to the Holocaust. But again, I mean, my girlfriend, who's actually obsessed with the war and Holocaust, she finds it really interesting. She originally went, she was vegan because she saw the comparisons, because she used to watch a lot of documentaries, and she saw like chickens, and she went, oh, they're in the same conditions as them. But again, it's kind of like, I can see the comparisons, but then there are obviously a lot of differences as well. I can never say it's exactly the same, because they're two completely different things. I mean, obviously Hitler was trying to destroy the Jews for a completely different reason than people kill animals. So that can't really be compared. But again, I would say despite the comparisons, whether they're valid or not, it's about being effective. And I think using a lot of these examples are ineffective. I think they get people's backs up. Obviously, Davey, I guess you're a prime example of why these don't work, I guess.
Oh, but Davey, I want to ask a question. Can I ask you a question? What do you think a better method for activism would be if you were going to convince somebody to become vegan? What would you tell them? Or how would you persuade them?
I think it'd be difficult for me to construct that argument, because I wouldn't really mean it.
But thinking from a vegan's perspective, what would you say?
I don't know. It's a unique situation. There is certainly no comparison with any human suffering. If yeah, there is no comparison with any human suffering, whatever.
So how would you go about persuading? If say put yourself in a vegan's shoes and
honestly, I answer that question. I don't know how I'd go about it.
Would you think about it for me?
Yeah, I mean, the ability to do it without being dogmatic. I mean, all you could do would be appeal emotionally. But again, I don't know if I really consider I mean, I'm never going to argue against anyone's right to argue for most things. I mean, there are things that I'll obviously dispute people's right to argue for. But I mean, for me, veganism is a personal choice. It's not a political system. It always was. I didn't take part in it because I didn't want to take part in it. It was never that I disputed its right to exist. You know, the thought of eating flesh at the time turned my stomach, and that was enough for me. But I never had any problems with my friends eating meat. You know, I never had any problems with being at events where there was meat. I sort of would actively target vivisectionists or fox hunters for doing what they were doing for what I saw as no gain whatsoever. But I don't think I would ever argue for sort of an expansion of veganism, bar putting information out there and letting people make their own decision on it.
So for someone like me, someone like myself, I approach people in the street and ask them questions, sort of philosophical questions about, like, in an epistemological way. Just I focus on what their beliefs are and how they come to those belief systems about why it's necessary and right to eat animals. So for someone like myself, can you think of a way that would make my activism more effective? Like, because I don't use comparisons to slaves or anything like that, but I do try and go down the path of I want people to I want to highlight any contradictions in people's belief systems. Do you see what I'm saying? So I will, yeah. So for someone like me, what do you think is that effective, or can you think of any way that would improve my street activism?
For me, because it's such a liberal attitude for me to take, because I'm really normally not in any way that sort of sickening, you know, just put the information out there, people will take it or they won't, sort of like, you know, there are certain situations, and I think a lot of political situations which require a more radical approach. I think veganism I think because I don't see veganism as a political issue, I would say that actually doing videos, yeah, fine, do Facebook, yeah, do pamphlets, go to stalls, that's absolutely fine, and hand out this information if people want to take it. But I think even in your sense, whilst actually I don't disagree that it probably is quite effective to stop people in the street and sort of challenge them at a moment's notice to question that sort of point of view. I don't doubt that that's actually probably quite effective in the short term, but again, I just think it's not you know, it's my own value system. I don't think it's a pressing enough issue to have to want to stop people in the street.
Yeah, sure. I know, I understand that you don't think it's, you know, it's not important to you, but I'm just trying to see from a non-vegan's perspective, because I want to be effective in my activism. Can you see any way that would, you know, make my street activism more effective?
I would just be passive in it. I really would. I wouldn't go for a sort of radical, or even.
Is it radical to ask people questions?
No, radical. I was going
sorry.
to say. Yeah, no, I was then going to say confrontational, and decided that was too strong as well. But I can't think of a word in between passive and confrontational.
Like
Yeah,
say like in any other context, if I was asking someone about, I don't know, can't think of anything. Not veganism. Can you like, I don't know, just say, I don't know.
I mean, like,
Chris, help me out. Like in any other context, we're asking questions.
Yeah,
confrontation.
stop them in the street and ask them who they're going to vote for. They're still probably not going to answer you. Like,
something that's not political. Then something that's not political.
I mean, do you mind me asking what sort of rate? Like how? Like when you're trying to stop people in the street, how many people stop?
Quite a few. I'd say more stop than. I mean, well, actually, probably about half and half. Some people just don't have time, you know, or they're too shy.
Okay.
So.
And what kind of responses do you get from? I have to excuse me. I've not seen your challenge.
That's right. Actually, well, because I live in Norwich, it's a fairly sort of progressive, liberal kind of place. Yeah. So it's quite easy. And most of the people I talk to, I'd probably say half of the people I talk to are at least vegetarian anyway. So it's just sort of like, well, you know, why not go just be vegan? I mean, most people just don't. They haven't heard about the atrocities in the egg and the dairy industry, so they're just, you know. But in terms of, what are you asking? Sort of like a success rate, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I'm gonna move on. I think that kind of answers what I was looking to kind of get out of that question. But I mean, especially with Norwich isn't. It's certainly not poverty stricken in the way that other places are. Yeah. And obviously, one of the big criticisms labeled at veganism is that it's classist, and that people just can't. The majority of working class people would never be able to afford to accommodate that sort of balanced diet in Iceland. It's just not going to happen.
Are you saying that veganism is expensive?
I'm not saying that veganism is expensive. I'm saying that veganism is not feasible when you are restricted to where you can buy your produce, and that being the really low end of the market. Like,
so if you are in a position where there's no problem just to go to the supermarket, it's just down the road. Someone like that it's feasible for them to become
more the ability to actually to afford which supermarket you're going into. For a great many people, even the idea of going to Tesco is actually completely above their price range. And especially as we've got I think it's like 1 million people in the UK now that are dependent on food banks. I mean, you're just at the mercy of whatever people give.
Yeah, but I mean, for the majority of people, that's not the case, though, right? I mean,
well, I wouldn't say so. I would say that actually most people do. I mean, I certainly consider myself to have a certain amount of financial privilege, and I'm a student. I'm certainly doing a lot better financially than I would say probably the majority of the country, and I feel no shame for that, but I feel no pride for it either. I have to be, you know, I struggle to accommodate high welfare food, and it does mean that I eat considerably less. I mean, what do I eat? I eat four dinners a week with meat in them, and it is like very small portions.
Because it's expensive, the high welfare free range.
Yeah, the high welfare stuff, and to be honest, vegan stuff is even more expensive.
Are you talking about the meat substitutes and that kind of thing, the vegan alternatives to meat? Or
even if you're just buying decent quality fruit and veg, you know, like the idea of making a vegetable-based meal, you know, 7 times a week is going to cost you more than just being, you know, just sort of wandering into Iceland and picking yourself up sort of like a 20 bag of sausages for £2.
Okay,
not
so
necessarily. You can get Linda McCartney sausages for £1.50 in Tesco, and beans, legumes, rice, pasta, some of the cheapest foods on earth. And like,
if we were going to compare, okay, let's take a shepherd's pie. I made a shepherd's pie tonight, right? It was bloody lovely. I really enjoyed it, and I've still got probably 5 or 6 portions left. I made out of like a tin of beans, it was just 40p. Lentils, like a huge bag of I don't know, was it like 500 grams lentils? And I used probably like a third of the pack, and then tinned tomatoes, some like gravy granules, a few herbs and spices, that kind of thing, and then potatoes. Like, how much does that cost? And if you swap the lentils and the beans for beef mince, like, which one's more expensive there? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the comparison.
Yeah, but the beef mince not only tends to arrive in larger portions, but actually, you probably can get beef mince for the same amount, if not less money. It's just shit quality.
Yeah, but I've still got lentils left over and beans left over. I haven't even
And
put
you
into
still
it yet.
have but it's just shit quality. Like and you would still have beef mince left over as well, but I mean, it's just really poor quality. I mean, unquestionably, meat is cheaper than, like, really poor quality meat is cheaper than
lentils.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's
how much is a pack? How much is a pack of lentils? I'm going to go into Tesco's now, find out, because I don't think I really beg to differ.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if it's the same price, if we're talking about the same price, then surely
it is cheap. You again, once more, kind of like, if you're kind of using a Tesco's example, whereas actually Tesco's is out of the price range of a vast swathes of.
But I mean, even if you shop at like Lidl or Aldi, you can still get plenty of.
I mean, like,
insane
again, even Lidl and Aldi. I mean, like, like a great many people around the country now are reliant on places like Iceland, which are like, they're even cheaper than Lidl and Aldi, and you can get like
Davey,
worth of meat for like £2.
Davey, 500 grams of red split lentils, £1.15.
Okay, cool, but that still doesn't. I mean, it doesn't change my point. Like, I mean, you can go to Iceland and get a week's worth of meat for like less than like £2-3. It's not good, but that is just the economic reality of a huge amount of people.
250 grams of lean beef steak mince, 5% fat. Oh no, that's the high quality stuff. Okay, let's try and find the cheapest.
I mean, I guess the thing is, though, like, yes, there may be people that are in a financial position where they struggle with food, and I get that, but the majority of people,
you're not talking about like the odd one, like, it is millions of people.
But there are still millions and millions of other people that are going to have absolutely no problems doing it. I mean, like, you think about some of the poorest countries in the world. I mean, they're pretty much living off a plant-based diet because rice and beans.
500 grams of really the cheapest mince is £1.69. So, just saying.
You should work for Tesco now.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to do the shopping for people, though, would you?
Give it weird.
So, I mean, it's now 30% child poverty rate as of 2010. So that's before we've seen like 7 years of austerity. So that figure has unquestionably gone up.
Yeah,
by probably quite a lot. I think the last time I checked it, 3.7 million children are living in what would be termed poverty. And that is 3.7 million children who are spending, 10, 20 quid a week on all the food for their entire family. So that's probably at least 3 people. And you can't get that quantity of vegan food. Not for 3 people, not for 7 days, not for like 10 or 15 pounds.
But meat is more expensive. I don't understand the argument.
It's not, though.
But I've just proved it is.
It's really not. You proved it is in one supermarket. But
okay, we'll go out. I'll go. Because does Aldi have
the one I was going to say, though, is, for as I said, with these people that are on a lower income, I mean, yeah, maybe the price thing is an excuse for them. But I mean, if the rest of the country, if it's not
an economic reality.
Yeah, but okay, a reality for them then. But even if the rest of the country adopted that kind of diet, they would actually be able to affect the pricing to bring those foods to be cheaper.
And you've got to realise that meat is heavily subsidised as well.
Yeah, true.
I think this is one of the things that I think is always a bit of a misconception for veganism as well, is that the idea that if more people start buying vegan food, by logic, the meat industry decreases. Whereas most supermarkets are certainly, they're not going to see it like that. They're going to see a increase in the vegan market, so they will stock more vegan food. But that isn't necessarily going to lead to a decrease in non-vegan food.
Well, it would, because if someone's buying a meat substitute over meat, then therefore the supply has now gone to the vegans and not to the vegan product and not to the meat. So therefore, it's a profit product. It's the supply and demand.
Why?
That would, I mean, that's very much assuming that the economy works on supply and demand, and it doesn't. So, there have been plenty of situations where supply has vastly outstripped demand, and so huge amounts have been disposed of simply to artificially float prices.
Oh yeah, I mean that's been the case with the dairy industry, for example. That's what's happened with them. They're finding they could tip away their milk and actually make more money. But it also leaves them in a bit of a shit position, which is hence why a lot of dairy farms are currently closing, and they're not in a good position. So as much as you might get that supply and demand thing for a while, that it's not sustainable for those businesses to remain like that. It's going to affect them, and eventually they're going to have to do something about it. You would have thought that would be unsustainable already, though, and it's chugging along. I mean, we've seen massive crises in world economies over the last in the last 10, 15 years before that, 20 years before that, or 20 years before that. It's never collapsed, and I don't think that I can't see a situation where that would be allowed to happen. I think it is a complete misnomer to assume that a rise in a vegan market would mean a decline in a non-vegan market.
In terms of the expense of a vegan diet, have you actually researched it and to see whether it's viable? Have you actually compared it to like a normal? I went vegan again briefly last year for about a year. My food costs went up. There's no way. And at the time as well, I mean, I'm not saying that I was living in I think it would officially be described as poverty, but I didn't like to think of it as poverty. And I mean, my food costs at the time were £40 a week, £50 a week for a family of four. And when I went back to veganism, I couldn't keep it under 60. But when I asked, what were you actually just for yourself? A lot of people that just for yourself?
No, not for your family. For the four of us, yeah. And I mean, that was eating pretty poor quality vegan food, and also, I mean, for a lot of people, that extra £20 just doesn't exist. I was just putting it on a credit card, but for a lot of people, that extra £20-30 just doesn't exist. But was that more expensive because you were having to buy additional vegan food on top of the food for the rest of the family, or were the whole family eating vegan? No, it was for all four of us. So all four of you were eating vegan within that time? Yeah. Okay. And what exactly were you buying that was more expensive? I just have interest. I wouldn't be able to list it sort of thing by thing. It was a while ago.
So do you make the same kind of meals, but just the vegan versions of it? Like lasagna, pasta dishes, and chip pies and chilies and curries.
Yeah, the same sort of meals. Oh no, man, you're gonna try giving my kids a curry? That does not work. It was the only thing I could get the kids to enjoy was the vegan hot dogs. I actually still eat the vegan hot dogs because they were tasty.
Sounds expensive.
Actually, how much were they? They were I think they were £2 for 12 or something like that. No, £2 for 9.
Okay, well, that's right.
Yeah, and I can't. I can't recall individual meals. It was over 12 months ago now. But yeah, I mean, I did try it, and it is unquestionably more expensive. But
but what's the comparison? Were you having more fresh fruits and vegetables to compensate for the lack of dairy and meat? Was it a displacement there, or was it just like for like?
Well, no, I mean, it was kind of I tried to incorporate some meat substitutes, and then also tried to learn just some sort of straight almost organic vegan recipes as well. Although obviously the food I was buying wasn't organic, but like, so I was trying to do meals that contain no meat and no meat substitute as well.
Sorry, can you repeat that last bit? I was just
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, like I was doing some meals which were just like for like, so things like shepherd's pies, vegan hot dogs, stuff like that. But then at the same time, I was also trying to do meals that were like no meat and then no meat substitute either. So even if it was like just like a vegetable stew or something like that. And
I mean, I guess a question I want to ask. I mean, if someone is in a financial situation to eat a vegan diet, which we know it isn't that much. I mean, a big majority of us would be able to do that. Obviously, we know there's ethical concerns as well, and there's also environmental concerns. I mean, what reason have people got not to do it?
Well, I mean, I was kind of speaking about this in terms of effective activism. Is that, yeah, certainly people draw comparisons, like some vegans will draw comparisons between various human atrocities and what has been leveled at animals, but there are more subtle things as well, which and the very first time I actually encountered this was when I was on a vegan stall, when I was vegan, like back when I was sort of, I think I was probably 17, 18 at the time, was a lady kind of took me to one side and showed me her weekly sort of food budget, and like kind of challenged me then and there to sort of, work out how she could go vegan in there within that budget. And I absolutely couldn't do this. Bear in mind that, I mean, this was like, 12 years ago, when, certainly vegan produce, substitute produce at least, wasn't as available as it is today. You pretty much had to go to Holland and Barrett if you were living in Devon and you wanted to sort of vegan meat substitute. But this is what I mean in terms of effective activism is, yeah, I mean, obviously don't draw comparisons with human atrocities, but obviously just be aware as well that you're sort of, it may be not such a problem in Norwich, but even in Torquay, there's a lot of poverty, and stopping people in the street and sort of questioning them about a diet that they're probably not all that thrilled with anyway. It can be classist, and in terms of effective activism, stopping people in the street may well not be that effective, because it is kind of singling people out who can't necessarily afford that diet.
I don't think I agree. I mean, I live, my wage is £1,000 a month, so I'm less than minimum wage basically. And I think if I was becoming omnivore, it'd become a lot more expensive, because meat is expensive, and I wouldn't want to go for the cheap stuff either. If I was to think like an omnivore that had ethical concerns with rearing meat, I'd go for the free range and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, the thing is, I'm kind of saying though is we seem to be talking about like the people that aren't in a position to maybe do it in a financial, which is fine. I mean, they've got a bit of an excuse, but what I think is, we're not
free food is free food at the end of the day. If you're a homeless person,
yeah, I mean, yeah,
choose.
Most of us, I'm watching this, involved not in that situation. So it's more kind of like, so what is our reasons? I
think that you're seeing this as a smaller problem than it is. We now have nurses, police officers, firefighters who are having to use food banks.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I understand those people, but the thing is, unless we can get these products to become
increasingly narrow,
more readily available, like, we're not going to help. They're not going to get there. So we need to be supporting this product, and if we can, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be supporting these products for whatever reasons, environmental, ethical, then I'm kind of just trying to work out why we wouldn't. If we're in a position to do so, why wouldn't we choose to do that? That's more what I'm kind of getting at.
Well, I mean, it's your decision. I'm certainly not taking any away from you if you feel like you can accommodate that, and if you are happy to live within the parameters. I mean, there's no problem. I've never had a problem with individual people deciding to live as a vegan, and I never will. I think the thing that I'm getting at is that for a vast majority of people, I don't think you're going to be able to convince them that suffering a further level of poverty than they already are is
in terms of activism. Then, if I was to approach someone on the street and I knew, I don't know how I'd know this beforehand, that they, were struggling financially, are you saying that I shouldn't even introduce the idea to them? Like if I introduce the idea to them and they agree with it, that's a bad idea?
You're not introducing the idea to them. You're stopping them on camera and putting them on the spot with a random question about something they probably can't afford.
Okay, let's say off the camera then.
And so, I mean, that is like that's not introducing the idea to someone. That is singling someone out.
Okay, so
I mean,
off camera.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know whether you would.
So let's work through this then, because I want to become the best activist. If it was off camera, and I knew that they, had money troubles, are you saying that I shouldn't introduce that idea to them at all? Because, are you saying that they wouldn't care?
I would struggle to believe that there's many people who don't know what veganism is, but I'm not saying don't introduce ideas to people, but I think that singling people out. I mean, I know Chris stalls. I know Chris's stalls. I don't know how Chris conducts himself on those stalls, whether he's actively approaching people, but I think a lot more inclusive way to do that is purely to make the information available. And if people want to then introduce themselves to the idea, then you don't have to run the risk of making them feel worse about an already shitty situation.
I guess this kind of activism, to me though, I mean, like, I can understand from, from an ethical point of view, and if we're going to be really kind of blunt about it, we're talking about, animals being harmed and animals, dying for a reason that really people can't nail down. People can't really say one reason to be like, this is exactly why we're doing it, and this is why we have to do it. So I don't see why we should be treating this, this any differently to any other kind of injustice that's going on. Why shouldn't we be, approaching people and talking to people in the same way that if there was someone, the same way the dogs trust are out there on the street, it's being like, there's homeless dogs, we need to give them homes, we need to do this. I can't see how this cause is any less important, especially when we encompass the environmental, the ethics, and something we haven't even spoke about at all, which is the health aspects, which obviously. And
also, I would add to that there's no reason whatsoever that you can't care about other issues of humanity and not be vegan at the same time.
Exactly. You can care about more than one thing.
Yeah.
Just because you put your heart into one cause, it's like every single person, say, that is fighting, say, child starvation in Ethiopia. It doesn't mean that they don't also that they don't also support like gay rights or other causes as well. It's just what they feel that they can put their efforts into the best they can. So and I do think that everyone should be. Personally, I think if you are going to be against inequality, and you're talking about inequality between humans and animals, then you should be the same with in regards to any respect. You should be automatically, against racism, against homophobia, against these things. It should be standard because you're against inequality.
But would your efforts not be better placed campaigning at ways to make vegan food more affordable than it would campaigning against individual people who already might be struggling?
Well, I mean, it works on like supply and demand, though. The more you buy vegan food, the cheaper it's going to become.
Then it brings it down. Like Linda McCartney sausages, perfect example. They're like one. You can get them for £1 in Tesco for £6 sometimes. Like they're gone down because people are buying them.
So I just advocate for just eating more vegan food.
Yeah, that's probably not true. If anything, if they're going down, probably because the people aren't buying them.
No, because if you look at the actual stats for. Yeah, if you look at stats for the vegan market, it is shooting up. So
especially like the plant-based milks,
Yeah, I think the free from had a 1,500% increase.
It's expanding all the time. I remember when I went to Sainsbury's, when I first went vegan, I couldn't get a single vegan ice cream in Sainsbury's. Now I go, there's a whole bloody section of different flavors. So that just shows you like how popular it's getting. Do you know what I mean?
It's not just Swedish glaze anymore.
No.
Everything now. You can get like salted caramel flavor.
Yeah, but what I'm kind of saying is I don't think that, you know, I don't feel that it's I don't feel it's a cause where, you know, we should just stand back and just let people get on with it, because if people can't justify harm, then we should be fighting against it. And until someone gives me a justifiable reason to why we're doing it, then I can't see why I shouldn't.
No, but I mean, in terms of effective,
let him speak.
I think you're targeting the wrong end of the market.
Sorry, what was that, Davey? Say that again.
Yeah, say that again.
In terms of effective activism, do you not think you're targeting the wrong end of the market? Like,
no,
the consumer, ultimately, as we know, has very little power, especially singularly. En masse, you're talking differently, but the numbers required to actually take an en masse action like that are unfathomable.
So, are you saying?
And you're very unlikely to ever to reach them, but you might find that you had more success targeting producers, whether that was through campaigning or direct action or whatever. You might find that you actually had significantly more success targeting the people who profit from it, certainly, and the people who are producing it in the first place.
But that's much harder to do, isn't it? We have to create a demand first to show that there's something worth investing in.
We can't tell people to make products if there's no one who's going to buy them. So, I mean, the easiest thing to do is introduce people to the thing and be like, look, there's all these products available.
If you want to stop the supply of not even necessarily, like if you want to ultimately severely restrict the supply of non-vegan food, I'm not saying that you should be targeting producers to promote veganism, but to promote targeting producers of sort of non-vegan products to not produce.
Well,
I mean, that's a lot.
There is campaigns out there doing that already. So, say for instance, to take milk powder out of products which would otherwise be vegan. I mean, that's the thing to do. But I mean, they put milk powder in them because it's left over from the dairy industry, and it just drives down the price. That's the only reason why they put it in.
I mean, one thing I would say, which is why doing the campaigning we do is effective, is there's a thing called I can't remember what it's a tipping point, basically, where you only need something like 10% of a population to adopt an idea, and after that, it just throughout history, ideas then snowball. So I think, you know, speaking to people directly and talking to them about things, which, to be honest, most people don't know about all the things that happen out there. They don't know about the environment stuff. They don't know what's happened to the animals. I think it's a really direct way of talking to people. And it's not as if I don't advocate going up and shouting at people. That's one thing. And people that shout at people and demean people and being like, oh, you're stupid murderers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me, it's murder and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm completely against that. I think that is, it's cringe. It's not effective whatsoever. But I think if you go up and speak to people on a one-on-one basis, a person to person, you know, remembering that person was no different to you were before you went vegan, and maybe they just don't know stuff, and talk to them like a real person, I think that's really effective. And I've had good results from that. I mean, you know, I've turned enough people vegan where I don't remember how many people I've turned vegan. So it must work.
How many are you still in contact with?
What's that, sorry?
How many are you still in contact with?
Oh, quite a few. Yeah, quite a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, loads of most people I've got on Facebook and stuff, and yeah, it's been great. I get people randomly adding me all the time, and
because I just think, why wouldn't you give that person the information? Like, empower them with information. They might not have seen it from that perspective, because we're all conditioned from birth to think that it's okay and acceptable to eat animal products, and we've never even questioned it. We've never, like, as soon as you start questioning things, that's where things change. You know what I'm saying? So why wouldn't you give somebody that opportunity where they wouldn't have thought about it before?
Well, I'm not. Again, this is kind of, it comes back to my original point of trying to think about it intersectionally, is when approaching people, you kind of have to accept that you don't know all of their various struggles, and actually they might find that the subject itself is particularly triggering for them in one way or another. And I'm not saying don't distribute the information. If you want to distribute information. But you can do that from a stall without having to actually approach people, and you would likely get just as good a success by campaigning on the other end to make sure that
you're talking about
companies are finding it more difficult and less profitable to produce these products, then you might actually make some level of change, because people will only stick in it as long as there's profit. And it's going to be a much, I mean, how long has political veganism been around now? It's been going for what, 70 years?
Yeah, it's been going for a long time, but I mean, since the birth of social media.
Yeah, but they've not significantly damaged the profits of any particular enterprise yet. Whereas a more economic approach may well be to target the other end, to target producers, to make it difficult and not profitable for them to produce this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there is those kind of things. Like, obviously, we can work on increasing the welfare that things have to bump up their prices and all that kind of stuff, which is stuff that does happen already. But I wouldn't ever discredit the effectiveness of personal one-to-one chats with people on the street.
I think that's the most effective way is the one-to-one thing. I mean, if you're just handing out a piece of paper, it's probably just going to go in the bin, But if you're giving somebody your time, I think that's more effective. Yeah, and I don't see how asking questions. I mean, I think what you're talking about, Davey, is like offloading loads of information onto that person, which is I would never do, because I want people to come to their own conclusions and research for themselves. So I would just ask them just open questions to get them thinking about something that they probably haven't thought about before. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but you can have conversations with people without approaching them.
How?
Well, allow them, if you've got your store and they're approaching you to pick up information anyway, it's perfectly reasonable to start up a conversation then. Yeah,
but most people most people don't know enough about it, and it's the thing is
they just dismiss it.
Yeah, they dismiss it. But I've had people before that seem a bit kind of you go up and speak to them, and at first they might not want to speak about it, but when you engage them and talk to them, suddenly they open up and they're like, "Oh right, I didn't know these things." And they're happy that you told them this. I mean, I totally agree with all the things you were saying about the comparisons and all this kind of stuff, and how all that is completely ineffective. I can.
There's good and bad ways to talk to someone.
Yeah, I mean, in maybe with some people, if they're the right kind of person, you can bring up those comparisons and it might work. But I found if those comparisons do not work for me, I find it's ineffective for me. I just don't think we should. If you can explain something in another way that isn't going to trigger someone, I would always choose the other way. I think it's more about being effective than being right and trying to just make a point.
Well, I think that's kind of interesting with the way you phrased it, though, is that actually you can see maybe why people get offended.
Yes,
but I certainly don't think that you. I don't find a way to say this that isn't really offensive itself.
Just say it. It's all good.
Because the way you describe it, you can see why it's ineffective. I don't think you can truly see why it's offensive.
No, I can fully see why it's offensive to non-vegans. I can fully see because they do not have
the way you phrase it is definitely more along the lines that you don't use it because it's ineffective. At no point have you said that you don't use it.
I'm not saying that some of the things don't have. And I'm not going to go into all ins and outs, but I don't think that all of them are invalid comparisons, because I do not see a particularly big difference between humans and animals that says, well, that's majorly wrong compared to the other.
From a purely logical perspective.
Yeah, from a logical perspective, that's what I mean. That there isn't, some things I don't see, but I know from being not vegan that it's the other people that don't understand that and are not in that mind frame that I am, that it's not constructive to say. It's not going to get me anywhere. And in the end, I do what I do because I want to help animals. So I'm going to do whatever's going to work for them. It's not about me.
If you felt it was effective, though, you'd use it. If you felt it was effective, though, you'd use it.
If I felt it was effective, if I felt that it didn't trigger people, that it was that people would understand it, but I don't think people do understand it, so I'm not going to use it. Like, you know, I know people won't get it. I know people won't get it, so there's no point.
There's a difference. You will continue to alienate people. I don't think there's any way around that.
What's that? Sorry, I missed you at the beginning of that. Then, sorry.
That's fine. If you genuinely don't really see a difference, I think you will continue to alienate people, and I don't think there's any way around that.
Well, that's the thing. That's why
you'd ask.
That's why I don't see it, because I don't want to alienate people. That's why I don't. Like, it can be my own personal. You know, as far as we can. Well, you could say, well, that's my opinion. But because I don't see it as effective, I'm not
saying it's your opinion, but I'm saying it's motivated by pragmatics as opposed to compassion, which is different.
It's more logical and moral consistency, because I can't see the difference.
But you'd ask the person, wouldn't you? You'd ask the person whether there is a difference between humans and animals. You just go by what they'd say and tailor your responses to what they're saying.
I mean, I see again. I do find that offensive. Like I can't.
But
sugarcoat that you would only not use an argument like comparing what happens to animals to, say, for example, the plight that the Native Americans suffered when their country was invaded. I mean, that is offensive.
I think the thing to bear in mind, though, is we're not trying. No one's trying to say that this certain thing makes this one less. I think that's one big thing. No, it's not saying, sorry, this one's worse than them all. This one, you know, this other human thing isn't as important. It's not saying that at all. It's not making which is worse argument. It's just using some parallels to show a similarity in the treatments. It's not saying they're the same. I think that's something that is.
There is no similarity.
Yeah,
if nothing else, actually.
Well, what about sentience?
Well, no, I mean, no, I mean,
even if you chose to see the two beings as completely equal in value.
No, that's not what.
Okay. Well, it's a hypothetical. Even if you were to see the two beings as completely equal in value, the treatment that was meted out to any of the examples that I've given is significantly worse than has meted out to animals. I mean, even an animal in a factory farm, yeah, I mean, it has a horrible existence. It grows, it lives, it dies in very cramped conditions, under extremely brutal conditions. However, it was not rounded up. It wasn't forced to work for years before it had to watch its whole family burn alive and go through all of those emotional reactions, which humans do have more of than animals. We do certainly have heightened emotional reactions.
No, so I agree with you. I agree with you on this point, Davey. I do. Like, it isn't the same
for nothing more than dominance. And I mean, that's what many of these atrocities were, was they were reflected for nothing more than dominance. And yeah, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah, but it's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I agree that there's a difference in suffering. Obviously, humans are. Yeah, you know, we've obviously got a more complex, sentience. We're going to experience things in a worse way than a chicken is. We get that. Get that. But it's not comparing.
But then there can't be a similarity.
Yeah, but there can be a similarity. If two things are in a cage, there's two things in a cage. There's a similarity. It's not saying that one's suffering more than the other. It's saying they're both in a cage. Being in a cage is wrong.
Well, but that's I mean, like, a chicken is in a cage, and so is Charles Bronson. There's two completely different things. Like,
yeah, but why is Charles Bronson in a cage?
Well, it's two things in a cage. Like, I mean, you can't decontextualize it to the point where you're.
No, because you can look at the reason. You can look at the reasons why.
Contextualization to make your point. Like, that's the way. That's just the way that.
You can look at the reasons why, though.
You can't remove something from one context and remove something from a different context and put them together to make your argument, because it completely. I mean, like I say,
that's not consistent.
It's not fair debating, if nothing else.
That's not a consistent position, because if you're saying like Charles Bronson and a chicken, well, the difference between those two is the chicken's an innocent chicken. Charles Bronson is not an innocent person in a thing. So there's your difference.
Is that what you're doing there is utilizing a different context to make your point. You know, you can say that there's two things in a cage, and that's your argument, that a human slave was in a cage and a chicken was in a cage, and therefore those two are in similar situations because of the cage. Whereas I can say that a chicken's in a cage and Charles Bronson's in a cage, but those two things you can say are dissimilar because of the way they both ended up in that cage. Yeah, so for you to decontextualize to just the point at the cage,
because they are different, because if to be consistent, if you took the difference of the chicken, which is the fact it's innocent, and applied it to Charles Bronson, then they're both in the same position. They're both innocent and in a cage, and that's both wrong. So the differences between those two treatments is that Charles Bronson has a reason to be in a cage, the chicken doesn't. Otherwise, it's inconsistent.
Well, someone argue differently, but this is what I mean, though. Like, there is you pick the points that you feel are most emotive to make the argument.
It's also much being emotive. I mean, would you say that an innocent being in a cage is being in a cage when there's no reason for it to be in a cage? Is that wrong or right?
Sorry, say it again.
Is an innocent being being placed into captivity in a cage for no reason wrong or right?
Well, I wouldn't think about it in terms of wrong or right, because again, it's decontextualized. An innocent being in a cage certainly has a reason to be in a cage. Now, knowing context behind that.
We're saying the context is someone's picked up an innocent being and just put it in a cage for no reason. Is that wrong or right?
Well, but knowing the point that you're trying to make is that, yeah, I mean, I choose not to participate in factory farming.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, fair enough. In that instance, I can say yes. Yeah, for example, I do believe that picking an innocent animal up, shoving it in a cage, making it produce, like 12 eggs a day until it's big enough to get turned into nuggets. I mean, and then it never leaving that cage. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that. I do think that's wrong.
Yeah. Because what we're saying, which I think is vital to say, is we're not saying that we're not saying that they suffer the same. We're saying that the treatment is wrong in both contexts. That's what the main thing is. It's not about one suffering more than the other. The chicken does not suffer as much as a human. That is a fact. We know that. The humans are way more intelligent. They've got way more emotion, way more feeling. The human will suffer more than the chicken, but it doesn't mean that the chicken situation is morally right. It means it's still wrong. They're both wrong. They suffer differently, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, and I get what you're saying now, but it's only because I forced you to that point. Like, earlier on in this conversation, you were perfectly happy to describe that you wouldn't use the human-animal comparison because you felt
no, because this is the thing. This is the thing. I'm not using. I'm not trying to use a human comparison. We could swap the human for a chimp. Same. What I'm saying is, what I was trying to explain to you is that despite me not using these concepts, I was trying to explain why they're used, and that it's not to compare the two and say they are the same. It is to compare the treatment and to say that both treatment in both contexts are wrong. That's what it means. That's what I was trying to do, is just explain to why people use it, because people do think that we're trying to compare the two, and that's not right. Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense? Or
I'm starting to get what I'm kind of. I don't know if I can find a more sort of effective way to say it, but I can't see those two as similar. I can't see the human animal comparison as similer.
Well, so you can't see two things with two.
And the fact that
you can see that they're both sentient, though, right?
Yeah.
Because do you agree that they're both sentient and they can both feel pain and they can both suffer? I know that they suffer on varying degrees. Humans have got way more to lose, obviously, but do you agree that they are similar in the fact that they both share sentience?
I think you're still kind of missing that. Actually, what happened to them is
but can you just answer the question before we move on?
Yeah.
Please.
Do you concede that they're both sentient? They both feel pain. They both have. Like. no matter what, they both feel pain, they both have emotion.
I mean, certainly they both feel pain, but I mean, you're breaking it down again to a very base level of decontextualization.
But why can't we do that? Why can't you do that? Because you've got to start from a foundation and work up from there. Do you see what I'm saying? It's because you're talking about all these hypotheticals and making it really complicated, but it's not really that overly complicated if you break it down to the fundamentals. Do you see what I'm saying?
I mean, it's a complicated issue, certainly, especially when we talk about.
Yeah, but we've got to start from square one. We've got to start from somewhere. Start from the ground up.
Oh, just to let everyone know, we are here. We have just hit
2 hours. Yeah, we need to wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll go another 5 minutes just to finish this bit off, then we'll do closing statements. Is that cool? Everyone cool with that?
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to go on forever. Otherwise. Okay. So Emma, carry on what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah, no, I just, Davey, can you just answer the question? Like, do you concede that they both share sentience and they both can experience varying degrees of pain and suffering because they share that quality?
I mean, I can concede that without letting up that I think that you're using a decontextualization as a tool to make the point, and it doesn't mean just because I can agree that they both share sort of pain receptors doesn't mean that I think that the two experiences can be in any way compared or described as in any way similar.
But you don't think you could compare two similar treatments as wrong? So, for example, kicking a chimp and kicking which is of higher sentient ability, and kicking a chicken, would you not say they are both wrong?
I don't know. What's the chicken? Is it an annoying chicken? No.
They're both really friendly, nice, happy.
He's really nice to his mum. He brings her flowers on Mother's Day. And
they're both lovely. They're both upstanding citizens within their species.
The chimp's got a bit of a dodgy internet history.
But all I'm trying to say is, regardless, both acts are still wrong. Both kicking the chimp and kicking the chicken are still wrong, unless we justify the reason to do so. For example, if the chimp is attacking me and I need to kick it to get it off me, therefore I am justified in self-defense. You see where I'm coming from? And also, if you applied that to the chicken to be consistent, and the chicken was attacking me, if it was a really, really aggressive chicken and I kicked it out of the way, I'd also be justified. This is where we have to have moral consistency.
Because you kind of get into a question of reasonable force there. Because I mean, if a chimp is attacking me, a chimp is a really vicious creature. If it attacks you, you're justified to use a fucking flamethrower if you want. But if a chicken's attacking you, I don't even feel really that you're justified in kicking.
No. Okay, right.
Walk away. Right?
Okay, I can take that argument. We'll pretend it's a giant chicken that's quite aggressive, right? But what I'm saying is, which is kind of at the point we came back to afterwards, is we're making this comparison here between chickens and the chimp to say that kicking both of them is wrong. And if there was, if the chimp attacked me and I kicked it, I'd be justified. If the giant chicken attacked me and I kicked it, it would be justified, which is consistent. So what we do is we then change the chimp to a human. And we say, right, kicking the human and kicking the chicken, they're both still wrong, unless we can justify why. Unless we can justify why kicking the chicken is now suddenly okay, but kicking the human isn't. You see what I mean? This is a really weird comparison, I know, with giant chickens and all this kind of stuff, but I hope you can kind of see what I'm getting at.
I mean, do you not see where I'm kind of coming from though, in the sense of having to make these grand over exaggerations and grand decollector?
You can in logic. That's the thing. That's the great thing about logic.
Yeah, exactly what Emma said though. With logic, you can. And to be honest,
we're having a logical debate. So
it's not a big comparison. I'm going to punch a human and I'm going to punch a monkey.
Why can I debate? We just invented a giant chicken. It's not really. It's
the only reason I said giant chicken. You said
one of the things I always hear from vegans, and I understand is a very frustrating argument for a vegan to hear, is if you were on a desert island, and you had no food, and unfortunately your partner on the island was completely inedible, and you couldn't fish or whatever, I'm obviously vegan, but would you eat meat? And the obvious answer to that is, look, yes, in that one very specific situation, if it ever came up, yeah, I would probably eat meat.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the same, but the other way around now, is you've had to make such a grand hypothetical situation to justify.
Okay, no, it's not, because we could do this really simply, okay?
It's an analogy, that's all
right,
it is.
yeah, you can do it really simply. Like, it's literally as simple as, okay, so you've got, say, a white person and a black person. Is it okay to punch, is it okay to kill and eat a black person? No. Yeah? It's not okay. Yeah, exactly.
The thing is
of course,
it's
not okay. Okay, we take it to a black child. It's now a child. Is it okay to kill and eat the child?
But you still see them similar.
Clearly not. Okay, now we change it to an animal. Okay, is it now okay to kill and eat the animal? If it's not, why? What has changed? What has changed? What is the difference in them? What is the exact difference between the child, the person mentioned before, and the animal, which now makes it okay? That is what we've got to determine. Because if we can't determine that difference, then we just arbitrary, give them less moral value. But we haven't stated why. We've just said, oh no, we said it's fine now, and that creates a moral double standard. So this is what we're kind of getting at. We need to explain why it's okay to do it to that being. Like, what has changed from it? Yeah, it looks different. It's not as intelligent. Its sentience maybe less. But what is the actual difference that now justifies it? A difference that if we applied that to ourselves would then mean it would be okay to do it to us. Because if we can't name that, then we're being inconsistent. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I understand your argument. Like, there's no, I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I understand it. Like, I get where you're coming from.
What I'm kind of asking is, what do you think that difference is?
Well, I mean, this is the same question that we've had since the very beginning, and I kind of explained it. I think there's a different level of consciousness. I think there's a different level of sentience, and there is a significantly wider context where you have to answer that question, where if we stop doing it, the vast majority of these animals would cease to exist altogether, and you kind of have to ask yourself whether it's better to live and die or never to have lived.
But we need to work from the foundation up again. You're overcomplicating it, like with questions.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Davey? I didn't catch what you said then.
No, carry on.
Oh, Emma, were you saying something? I lost kind of what was going on there.
Yeah, but I mean, Davey, you're just going on tangents. We just want to start from the foundation up, but I mean, we can go on about sort of conservation and biodiversity and all the rest of it, but we need to like solve this problem first, this ethical problem. Is it okay to kill and eat animals for arbitrary reasons?
Well, I don't think that is necessarily the foundation.
What?
I mean, obviously, it's kind of, you guys are hosting the debate, so you kind of get to. But I would dispute that was the.
So we shouldn't start from the ground up.
Well, I don't think that's the ground.
What is the ground?
I mean, any number of things could be the ground. Whether you wanted to discuss it from, I mean, you can set the ethical question if you want, but there is also the health question.
Does anything trump morality? What trumps morality and ethics? What can be more important than well-being? Put it that way.
Well, but you can't equate morality and ethics with well-being.
Why not?
Because they're two completely different things.
Well, morality is the right and wrong, and if it's wrong to affect something's well-being, then it comes quite naturally into it, doesn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say that morality and well-being are the same thing. They're often placed together in similar, often quite religious.
Call it value then. Call it value instead of morality, because morality is can be a triggering word in some contexts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why? You can pose the question why, but it's just as easy for me to pose the question why not. I mean, you guys are the ones that are arguing against hegemony. It's something that we have the ability to do.
Are you asking the question, why shouldn't we kill animals? Is that what you're...
Well, like I say, but a lot of the times the only answer you have for that is moralistic. And
well, yeah, I mean, I can give they're sentient beings, and there's no justification to kill them. There's environmental impacts of animal agriculture, and there's health impacts to us on a human. So
we can survive without them.
We can survive without them. Yeah, we have no biological need. But then when we turn it around and say, well, what are the reasons to? Then that's where it gets a bit sparse.
Well, I don't. I mean, there's plenty of human functions which don't necessarily serve any biological need that we will still do and always do.
Yeah, but you don't have to. Just because you should do, just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that you should, right?
No, but I mean, there's God knows how many human experiences which are not biologically necessary that we will never stop, nor should we. Or
I think we're gonna probably wrap it up in a sec.
Yeah.
Just because
we can talk about this all night.
Yeah, it's gonna go on forever, aren't we? So I don't know. Is there anything anyone else will say about this? Yeah, or should we get on to closing statements? Emma, is there anything else you want to say, or Davey, anything else you want to kind of add to this just to wrap this up?
No closing points. You guys can take the closing points.
You all good?
Yeah.
Emma? Okay. Well, I don't know what to kind of say. Kind of closing points, really. I guess, like, you know, I would still argue that without a justification to to treat another sentient being differently, then when we wouldn't want that placed upon ourselves, we do create that double standard, and and the fact that we obviously have no biological need, the environmental and the health impacts, I think, are enough reasons to, if we're in a position to do so, adopt a vegan lifestyle for those benefits. And I can't really see any reason kind of not to, if you are in a position to do so. So I guess that's all for me to say. Davey, do you want to hop in?
No, I'm good for closing. I feel like I've kind of made everything.
I think we've covered most things, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, like, ultimately, I'm here in a reactive position, so it's difficult for me to sort of summarize a reaction.
Yeah. I guess our closing statements are going to be pretty much the same as our opening statements, almost, anyway. Is there anything else you want to say, Emma? Or
yeah, I would just echo what you said about I think if you're going to make a case for a devaluation of something, you do have to justify it. It is necessary. Otherwise, if you don't, then you're under obligation to name a difference between humans and animals, which would justify human slaughter if that trait didn't exist in either. So that's which is the same thing I said at the start. Because I just think just to be logically consistent, you have to go down that path. You have to answer those questions, and to not, it's kind of like it's lying to yourself. It's a kind of cognitive dissonance, really. So yeah, I'd say that. But I do. Davey's raised a few things that I will take on board in terms of activism and stuff like that.
Yes,
I do agree with you on that, Davey. Like I think like the political side of activism needs work, because some vegans are just completely insufferable and can't stand them. Like I just want to disassociate myself with them because they're the ones that shout the loudest, and they're the ones they're just so ineffective. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
I totally agree with that as well. I think some vegans piss me off as much as they do non-vegans. Yeah, I think there's definitely work to be done as far as effective activism is concerned. So yeah, I would 100% agree on those points there.
Yeah, and David, thanks very much for coming to do this. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, really definitely appreciate it. It's been good fun, actually.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
I hope everyone watching has enjoyed it as well.
The chat has gone crazy, but we haven't had time to read anybody's comments whatsoever. But it's just gone mad. I noticed. Sorry, go on.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, if anyone wants to ask any questions, I mean, the thing is, there's a delay on this, but if you want to put them in the chat, then maybe we can come back to them. Or
yeah, we can.
Davey, you signed up to YouTube, Davey? You got a YouTube account?
I not really.
Oh, right. I was going to say you could possibly answer questions. If you haven't got it, then.
I say I have a YouTube account. It's got one video on it. It's my wedding video. And, it was 4 years ago, and I just use YouTube to back up that video. That's the only reason I've got the account.
So make sure to go to David's channel, like the wedding video. give him a subscribe. He needs his numbers up.
Are you going to do an anniversary video?
We could do actually, yeah.
I think you should do.
We'll do one in 10 years or something.
Yeah, that's all good. So yeah, cheers, Davey, for coming on. Really do appreciate it. And
I really appreciate it. I think it's been awesome. I really appreciate this experience because I haven't done anything like this before. So.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone in the chat for not getting too frustrated with things. I've been trying to keep up with things, and I'm going to need to read it back.
When I was doing like the lentils and beef mince comparison, everyone was going crazy, like, "Oh, what about Aldi? What about Asda? This, that, and the other." And they were like doing price comparison things.
I don't ever get putting prices up. We'll try and get the chat a bit more involved next time if we can.
Yeah.
But obviously this is the first one we've ever done, so we just kind of wanted just to get get the hang of it really, and see what happens. But no, it's been really good. I think it's been really constructive. So good stuff. Right. So no worries. Thanks a lot, Davey. I really appreciate your time. And everyone should go and hunt down Davey's old band, The Wounds. Are the Wounds online anywhere, Davey?
Sorry?
Is there any Wounds MP3s online anywhere for anyone to check out?
You know what? All the ones are still on MySpace.
Are they? Okay, well,
because I do occasionally go and listen to them.
Is MySpace
and then yeah, MySpace is all about music now, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Like it's just
so people are aware.
Tell you what, Chris, you know what?
What were you gonna say?
You know what I was looking up like last September was, sorry, this is completely irrelevant to the chat.
No, go for
but
it.
I ended up going through all the old MySpace pages of like 69 Reasons Why and Slot and all those bands.
Oh God. We have to have a look through. But yeah, just in case people didn't realise, me and Davey have actually known each other for quite a long time. We used to both be in bands, both gig together and stuff back in the old ska punk days. Good times at Room 51 in Chudley. That's what it's all about.
Right, I gotta go.
Yeah, I've got to go too. I've got to go to bed because I've got to talk. I've got to talk. I've got to talk just before everyone goes. I've got to talk tomorrow in Norwich at the Norwich Vegan Festival. If anyone wants to come down at 12:30 to come and give me some support.
Go and see Emma. Go subscribe to Emma if you're on her channel. Subscribe to me if you're on her channel. The way around. You know what I mean. Subscribe to both of us. Subscribe to Davey's video. Give him a like on his wedding. Check out The Wounds, and we'll speak to you another time for another debate.
All right. Catch you later, guys.
Right, Davey, you're free to go, mate. You're free to go. Cool. Cheers, buddy. Speak to you soon.
All right.
Cool. Right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Anything else you want to say, Emma? Are we all good? I think we're good.
Nah, I've got to get some sleep now.
I'm going to give out some quick shout outs to people in the chat because they feel left out. Shout out to Dean, Arnold, Hannah, Anna, Ross.
Oh yeah, Hannah, Holly. Bandwidth, was that? Oh, John Yin.
36KMW, Cat the Vegan Artist. Diego.
Rusty Richardson.
I'm kind of scrolling through.
Rebecca Pawsey, is she still in there?
Paolo, yeah. Red Pebble, Zabadja. Who else we got in here? I think that's most of the ones on my chat. Yeah, cheers all for tuning in, everyone. And yeah, we will be doing another debate fairly soon. We've got a few non-vegans that are up for coming on to have a debate. So hopefully you'll tune in. So just make sure to subscribe, hit that bell for notifications or what jazz.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll see you all very soon. Cool. Right, I'm going to press off then.
Yeah, me too. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Love you. Bye. Bye. Bye.